So I was out driving around the other day just trying to figure things out, and I passed this kitchen supply store and I saw a bunch of handcrafted woodwork in the windows, cutting boards and stuff like that. And I was like, hey, I'm not doing anything else. Let me stop in and talk to these guys. And I go in, and it turns out that they mostly sell knives. The guy makes his own knives, which is extremely cool. And but all this woodwork and stuff. And I said, hey, you know, who does your woodwork? And the guy said, oh, you know, I do some of it. And we had another guy who did it, but, you know, we kind of lost track of him. He's not around anymore. And I was like, oh, well, here's my business card, you know, I can make all sorts of stuff, what do you need? And he was like, oh, this is fantastic, I need bowls. I need you to turn me some bowls. And I was like, yes, of course, absolutely. And, you know, I've turned 0 bowls in my life, none. But look, I've got Old Faithful Harbor Freight lathe behind me here. I have done a lot of turning on it. You know, mostly spindle stuff, so I was like, okay, yeah, I could do some bowls, and the guy was like, great, how long does it take you to turn a bowl? And I was like, you know, a little while, hour and a half. I was trying to come up with something that sounded good. He was like, oh, good, you're fast then. And I was like, sure. So he said, all right, well, look, we're mostly open like Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, so come back next week and bring me some stuff, and we'll sell it. And then he said, and we need wine racks, and we need pot racks, and, you know, cutting boards and all sorts of stuff. But what we really need right now is bowls. We've got high demand for like salad bowls and kitchen bowls, any high-end stuff. So bring me some bowls next week, and we'll take it from there. And I was like, okay, great, see you next week. Okay, so I had no idea if I could turn a bowl at all or not, and so I wanted to start really small. So what I did is I took a square of poplar that I had sitting around, and I chucked it in, and then I basically just stuck the bowl gouge into it and kind of held it in place until I turned this little thing right here. And I know it's not much, but it's kind of a little proof of concept. I looked at this and I was like, okay, this is bowl shaped. I need to just move up from here. So then the next thing I did was grab a piece of apple, or no, cherry, this is cherry, and I did like a complete bowl. And if it looks good to you, I mean, it looks good to me too. I'm pretty happy with the way this started out. It's got some problems. The wood has some cracks in it, and I'm going to try and get it on camera here. Some of the grain tore while I was turning it, and I wasn't able to sand out that grain or scrape it out. And there's torn grain here too in the end grain. And I don't know how bad it looks on camera, but in person it's bad enough that nobody's gonna pay like good money for something like this. It does look amateurish. I also used the chuck on the lathe, and I didn't really know or understand how to flip it around and work the bottom of the bowl. And this is another thing that's it's just not good enough the way it is. So, and the outside surface is all right, but it's a little bit streaky. You can see the streaking here, particularly around the end grain there, which I've read is a really difficult thing to figure out. And I think I need better tools, better scrapers maybe. I'm not sure. This is all brand new to me, and I've got to be producing saleable work in a couple of days. So I've got to figure out a lot of stuff really quickly. So anyway, this is it. These are the bowls that I've turned so far. I've got a lot of obstacles that I'm trying to work through. The biggest one is tools. This is all I've got for a bowl turning gouge right now. If you know anything about turning, you can see that there's some weirdness going on here. The biggest thing is that this gouge is actually square in cross section. And the fact that it's square, I gotta tell you, it's not good. It doesn't help. It's very difficult to get it riding on the tool rest the way you want it to. It always wants to sit flat, which isn't good. It's not easy to sharpen. It's a really clumsy tool. And of course, you're probably thinking, well, listen, just buy a regular bowl gouge. But you know, you have to understand, I don't have any money for something like that right now. Anything I'm doing here is gonna have to work with the tools that I have. So I've got this one, and then, oh, and this a different estate sale. I bought this round-nosed scraper. It's pretty old too, but it works pretty well. I get a good edge on it, so that's decent. And then I made this scraper last year, and it's pretty primitive. It's an old tang chisel that I had laying around that I set into a handle, and then I ground a scraper edge on it. And surprisingly, it actually works pretty well. So let's go over to the lathe, and I'll show you the bowl I'm working with now, and we'll talk about the challenges that I've got going. Here's the bowl that I'm working on right now, and I've been working on the outside here. This is a piece of wood. I'm not even totally sure what this is because it's reclaimed. I think it's pecan, but this piece has been very difficult to work with. It's dry, which is important because everything that comes off the lathe needs to get finished right away so that I can deliver it to the store. But it's very, very hard wood. The edges here where the grain is long, they're turning smooth and they're looking nice. But the ends, and I hope you can see it on camera, I've got all kinds of torn grain and pock marks and stuff like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my little homemade scraper and I'm going to work over this a little bit and see if I can scrape that finish a little smoother. Okay, so that definitely helped. There's definitely a smoother finish here, especially on the surface. The problem that I have is some of the torn grain that's going on. It's going really deep, especially in the end grain. And even though the scraper's working pretty well, it's really only designed to take a finishing cut. It's not going to get me deep enough in to take out those really big chips. So I'm going to need a more aggressive tool for that. A lot of people use the bowl gouge for that sort of thing. But my bowl gouge has some problems aside from just being weird. The biggest problem is that you can tell here the wings have this concave shape. And I learned recently that in order for the tool to work most effectively on the edges, it either has to have a straight edge or a convex edge. It's got to have a little bit of an outward curve to it. So this is exactly wrong. It's what I don't want. The point is okay, and the sweep is okay, and the general shape is fine, but I've got to take this over to the grinder and try to refine a better shape on it. Now I've been to the grinder, and you can see I've changed the profile. Now it's much straighter on the wings, and this should give me a better scraping, better shearing action. As you see these shavings that I have, they're pretty long and they're fluffy. I'm not getting dust, I'm getting good curls of wood, and that's a good sign. The finish is still improving, it's still better. I've still got some of those big gouges, but I think they're deep. I don't think I caused any new ones. I think I'm removing them slowly by scraping and shearing with the tool. So let me get back to it. Okay, now I've turned through almost all of that bad chipping that I had before. The wood here is very splintery and the pith runs right through here. One of the reasons I used this piece of wood is because it wasn't good for much else and I figured it'd be good to practice on. If it comes out, great. If I destroy it while I'm trying to hollow it out, I guess I'm just gonna have to call that a learning experience. Here we go. Okay, it's going fine and the wood is staying together, but at this rate, I'm going to be here half the day just hollowing it out. Time for a change in tactics. So what I did here was go over to my drill press and use a 1-inch Forstner bit to make a big recess in the middle of the bowl. Now, I still have to hollow it out, but I only have to make these short passes to get to the rim, and the hollowing goes much quicker. Now you can see here that I've finished hollowing the bowl and the shape is good, but the finish is ragged, like I've been struggling with. So I started with a shearing cut with the bowl gouge, but then I moved on to my scraper. And I found the scraper left a best finish when I turned it in this really extreme angle. That's when things were smooth. Here's the bowl done, and it hasn't been easy, but you can see I've got nice, clear grain. Here's the cherry bowl, and I'm actually going to try and finish it with super glue. I have no idea if it'll work, but the bowls are due tomorrow, so I need something fast. I just put it on a paper towel and rubbed it on while the lathe was spinning. Here I am putting some more on, making sure that it's nice and even. And then once I got a complete coat, including the rim, I took the paper towel and flipped it around to the dry side and just burnished the bowl with it. And I'm letting the heat build up here and letting it dry the glue more quickly. It never got sticky through this process, which really surprised me because, you know, it's super glue. Now, when I first got my chuck, I didn't even know what these quarter circle pieces of metal are. Turns out they're called coal jaws, and they're for mounting your bowl backwards, flipping it around, and working on the bottom of the bowl like I'm doing here. Now I've got the pecan bowl mounted in the same coal jaws, and I'm just finishing up. I'm sanding it to get nice crisp lines, and then I'm going to use the same super glue finish that I used on the cherry bowl, and then both of them should be done and ready for delivery. Okay, so today's Wednesday. It's the day that I'm going to deliver my bowls. So here's the progress that I've made. So here's the cherry bowl that I showed in the beginning of the video. And what I've been able to do is scrape all of the torn grain off with a couple different tools, flip it around, work the back, and now I'm much happier with the overall level of quality here. This looks like something that somebody would actually pay money for. Here's the pecan bowl that I started out with, the one that had the really torn grain. I've been able to smooth everything out there and get a good finish. I used the CA glue finish on this one too, and it came out really well. I was talking to my wife about it, and she said that she thought it would be worth more money if it had a lid. So yesterday, I also turned this lid right here. It fits in, it's got a tenon, just like that. And I turned this off-center spiral pattern on the top to make it a little bit more visually interesting. I'm going to call this a salt cellar or maybe an herb jar. I'm not really sure how to market kitchen stuff, so we'll see. I also made some progress with my tools. I did sharpen this one better, but I figured out that the big problem with this is that it just sucks. It's a bad tool and it doesn't work very well. So I'm not really using this much anymore. Instead, I took a couple of hours yesterday and made a new bowl gouge. This is called an Oland tool. It's a high-speed steel cutter from a metal lathe that's been shaped to that rounded point right there. It's set into a piece of steel bar, and I turned a handle out of a piece of dogwood that I had in the shop. And this actually works amazingly. I know it looks kind of crude, but it leaves a smooth finish, and it actually works much better than the other gouge. So I've been using this one recently, and I think this is going to be my gouge from now on. It's going to let me work faster and a lot cleaner. So now that the bowls are done, I'm getting ready to take them down to the shop in about an hour, show them to the owner, and see if he's interested in carrying more of my stuff. I'm really hoping this could be the start of a longer relationship where I make a variety of stuff for them and sell it. My other job has been a little bit slow recently, so I could really use a different income stream. So anyway, I'm about to go down there and see if they like my stuff and see if they want to order some more things from me. Wish me luck.